we're going to queer up the courts. Case of Christian baker who refused LGBTQ plus cake to be heard by Colorado High Court. The justices will hear the case of a Christian baker who refuses to make a cake celebrating a gender transition. This is the latest development in the years-long legal saga involving Jack Phillips and LGBTQ plus rights, and comes on the heels of a U.S. Supreme Court victory for a graphic artist who didn't want to design wedding websites for same-sex couples. Phillips won a partial victory before the Supreme Court in 2018 after refusing to make a gay couple's wedding cake. He was later sued by Autumn Scardina, a transgender woman, after Phillips and his suburban Denver bakery refused to make a pink cake with blue frosting for her birthday and to celebrate her gender transition. Scardina said she brought the lawsuit to challenge the veracity of Phillips' statements that he would serve LGBTQ plus customers. The case involves the state's anti-discrimination law, making it illegal to refuse to provide services to people based on protected characteristics like race, religion, or sexual orientation. The key issue in the case is whether the cakes Phillips creates are a form of speech and whether forcing him to make a cake with a message he does not support is a violation of his First Amendment right to free speech. Oy, this putz again. He seems to have risen more times than his savior. Bake the effing cake. No one's asking you to eat it too.
Yeah, and the thing is, though, this is a deliberate challenge from a trans woman who wants him to make the cake. The cake itself doesn't actually say anything related to LGBTQ plus, except for the colors. So, so the challenge to Phillips is that how does he justify refusing to bake a pink cake with blue frosting, and say that, and claim that that's forced expression, while if an 8-year-old girl comes into your bakery and asks for pancake with blue frosting, are you going to say no to? Or are you only saying no because the customer is trans?
Well, I like to see little girls cry, so I'd probably say no, just despite it.
But you know what I mean. The problem is that the wedding invitation case or wedding website case, which by the way is completely made up by those.
Yeah, that needs to be
MFers or whatever their names are, and they are, but. You can argue that, okay, so the website contains words and stuff, and that you don't want to say that, but baking a cake is baking a cake.
Yes.
Unless I ask you to write the slogan or a happy trans anniversary on the cake, I'm not asking you to celebrate anything other than just baking a cake with specific colors on it.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I think if people look back on the fall of our society, it'll be about cake baking. If I have to talk about this one more time, I mean, first of all, the conversation is just it's down a hole of like there are so many more important things that we could be talking about in the world, but the sentiment of it and the fact that the courts are hearing. I mean, we're talking about important issues, and the courts have to take up their time to talk about who can bake a cake and who can't bake a cake, and again, I understand a lot of these cases are brought, as we know with the website, they're brought for the factor of making the statement. But we need to do something to rectify this because these are again, they're distractions from and we're not solving any real problem.
Waste of time.
I got a question for you. Is there any level of advocacy that can move this issue at this point, or is everybody just here? Because we can have galas and door knocking and grassroots efforts and all sorts of political elections, but aren't we sort of kind of at where we're at on this at this point?
I don't think so because again, just when we were talking about, when we talk about youth and you talk about the people that are pushing most of these things, Moms for Liberty, and again, not the age group may not be as important, but when Moms for Liberty realizes, oh, guess what, my son is gay, or oh, guess what, my daughter is coming out as wants to transition, and every time another person is able to, the reason we have to have visibility accountability and we have to keep telling our stories over and over is because we need to make sure that when there are people out there that feel like there's no one listening, that there is a place for them, and that those stories, and also there are people out there that are like, oh, I don't know any trans people, so these stories don't affect me, which is a very legitimate thing. If it doesn't affect you, you don't vote on it, right? Or you don't care about it. But eventually, you're going to either somebody in your family or somebody you work with or your best friend's kids, somebody is going to come into your life. So we have to keep telling those stories because we have to show that it may not impact you individually, but it will impact somebody you know.
Yeah, and I think that she's going to lose this case. The Supreme Court has not been amenable to Colorado's equal rights protections that the state passed, but the Supreme Court just keeps knocking it down and knocking it down. And usually I would agree with you about how there are other things that are so much more important that we have to talk about. But this type of free speech is very important at this juncture because there is a judge in Texas that is trying, his name's Kesmerick, and he is trying to basically say that any speech related to sex, intimacy, or sexuality has zero to scant protection under the First Amendment. So the fact is, there is a judge, there's an activist judge who's trying to go after this. So while it does seem silly, he's finding these little seemingly inconsequential cases.
And let me rephrase what I meant. Was not that us talking about it is not silly. Is the fact that these things are going to court and taking up time, space in our government and our court system. And there can't just be like a line drawn saying this is what free speech means and continuously and we're going down to cakes now. Like you said, websites has words on it. Now we're talking about like pink and blue frost. I mean, there has to be a line where the courts are like, we're throwing this out as garbage because, and meaning, and we have to have a line drawn to stop this ridiculousnse.
I mean, and let's face it, the baker would have baked the cake if the person would have said, this is for my birthday.
Yes.
And it's about words again.
And then, but it was a different birthday. It was the birthday of her transition, of realizing her real self. And that type of self-awareness and honesty has no place in conservative, bigoted circles.
No.